All right, we're going to try to make this one quick. We have to do a central division. The NBA tips off in about a week. So we're running out of time to get through these. And this is our third division in the East, the final one. And we're going to kick things off with this being the central division with the most obvious choice, right? You have the Bucks, the Bulls, the Pacers, the Cavs, and the Pistons. It's got to be the Bucks, right? The Bucks made the biggest move of the offseason in terms of getting in a superstar. So they were 58-24 last year, although they lost in the first round 4-1 to the eventual Eastern Conference champs, Miami Heat. So what happened in Milwaukee? They revamped the entire thing. They had a little bit of offseason drama. Giannis Antetokounmpo was kind of threatening to leave, put it out there like, hey, I will not be committed if no one else is showing the same commitment that I am. If you are not going to be spending less time with your family the way I'm spending less time with mine, I probably won't return. So what did Milwaukee do? They made a really crazy decision. They trade away Drew Holiday. They trade the last picks they have available to their franchise with any level of control, and they bring in Damian Lillard, which is crazy. Such a huge identity shift in the course of one season. So what does that mean for them? Over the course of the offseason, they lost to Grayson Allen in that same trade as he goes to Phoenix. Javon Carter is gone, who was basically their starting point guard over the second half of the season there, splitting minutes with Drew Holiday in the position. And now he's on the Bulls. Wes Matthews is gone. He's on the Hawks. Joe Ingles is gone. He's on the Magic. And they bring in Malik Beasley, a really good sharpshooter, although he had a bit of a down year with the Lakers this season. They bring in Robin Lopez, someone who has worked with Dame, obviously the twin brother of the more talented Lopez, Brook. And they bring in backup point guard Campaign, which is a solid addition, a guy who came off of the wave market from the San Antonio Spurs. But the biggest thing, obviously, is the Damian Lillard addition. It completely changes their identity. When you pivot from Drew Holiday, someone who's heralded as one of the best perimeter defenders in the game, and you go to Damian Lillard, someone who would never be accused of being a good defender, but you're getting one of the best offensive players in the world, it kind of gives you a bit of a dynamic shift. It changes your paradigm of how you have to view this team. This team in Milwaukee has been one of the worst offenses for playoff contenders year in and year out, somewhere between 13 and 20 every single year. And they've been relying on that brilliant defense. They won a championship on the back of that brilliant defense. You think of that run that they had in the finals coming back from 2-0 against the Phoenix Suns. A lot of those plays that they made were on the defensive end, including Drew Holiday straight up stripping Devin Booker and getting an alley-oop over to Giannis. Those kinds of things matter. And now they have a chance to pivot from that to the offensive side of things and kind of give themselves more of a closer in Damian Lillard. What was the struggle they had against the Miami Heat this past offseason or postseason? They got dominated in the clutch. They would enter the fourth quarter with huge leads, 15, 10, 20-point leads, and they would lose every single one of them because of their inability to close the games out. Giannis even almost threw the game away. I forgot which game it was when they went to overtime. Was that game 5? Was that game 5? Maybe game 4. I don't know. But Giannis throws the ball away to Chris Middleton, saves it, gets to Drew. He misses a free throw, and it kind of ruins the game for him. Jimmy Butler hits a basket to send the game to overtime, where they end up getting dominated yet again. So getting Dame shifts that. He's going to have the ball in his hands at the end of close games. What's really intriguing about this, though, is more than just the clutch stats. Lillard is one of the most clutch players in NBA history. He has the most series-ending jump shots or buzzer beaters in league history with 2. The only other person that has one is Jordan, which obviously is that really famous one over Byron Russell. But Dame has the one against the Rockets and the one against the Thunder where he waves them goodbye, and now he is a Milwaukee Buck. The most intriguing part, like I was saying, is that these two are phenomenal players in Giannis and Dame. But what makes it more intriguing, more so than, let's say, like a Kawhi Leonard or a Paul George or even like a LeBron James and an Anthony Davis, is just how well these two players fit together in terms of their style. If you were to craft a player to be perfectly suited to play alongside Giannis, it'll probably be Steph Curry, right? One of the best shooters of all time, a really good passer, can find the pocket and kind of navigate through double teams and triple teams, whether off the dribble or off the pass. Dame is as close as you're going to get to Curry without creating another Curry. So it's perfect. It's the perfect fit. We just saw their only preseason game played just yesterday, and they were awesome. Just incredible. Giannis getting a full head of steam going down is just the best case scenario for him because you cannot leave Dame open. You're going to have to trap him. You can't give him an easy opportunity. He's one of the best pick and roll players in the league right now, if not the best. And now he has someone like Giannis who sets brick wall screens and rolls down like a train. It's going to be incredible to watch these guys play together. Not to mention the spacing they already have alongside them, like Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez and whoever else they want to throw in there. Like probably Malik Beasley, whoever. That they have good shooting around it. So there's going to be opportunities if they bring a third defender or even a fourth defender to stop both of these players. The idea is incredible. The amount of gravity both of them create in two opposite sides of the court on the offensive side of things is going to be incredible. Dame is one of the best gravity creators on the perimeter, and Giannis is one of the best gravity players going into the basket as a roll man. And you're just not going to find a better combination than that. Going forward from there, this is obviously a risk, right? You're changing the identity of a franchise that has maintained this same thing since before they traded for Jrue Holiday. Remember when they traded for Jrue? They traded all of their first round picks, all of those pick swaps, and they had a really good player, Eric Bledsoe, who was an all defensive player. And now they flipped from that to Jrue Holiday, one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. And they went from that to now Damian Lillard. Now it's going to be more offensive centric. And it's not to say Dame won't be a better defender because he has a great backline behind him. One of the best off-ball defenders in the league is Giannis. One of the best rim protectors in the league is Brook Lopez. So he's going to have opportunity to gamble, be a little bit more aggressive on the defensive side of things, especially with a lessened offensive load playing alongside Giannis and Chris Middleton, probably two of the most gifted offensive players Dame has ever played with outside of LaMarcus Aldridge. But it's still a huge change. We have to see it in practice, which we haven't seen yet. It's kind of incredible what happened here because as a Blazer fan, the Twitter wars that were going on with Miami Heat fans was crazy. And seeing Dame go to a rival was a little bit of a ha-ha moment, which was great. But then also we have a chance as Blazer fans to watch Dame have a chance to win a championship, right? So it's one of those kind of like sad but good sad because it's like, wow, we actually get to watch this guy fight for a title, which is what he always wanted. The idea here is incredible for this team. I do admire the balls of the franchise to go out there and completely uplift their franchise. Take someone who had such strong roots in Milwaukee, someone like Jrue Holiday, a pillar of the community, a pillar of the franchise. Take him and move him somewhere in Portland where he was traded again to their rival in Boston. But to do that for a superstar that may or may not be happy is crazy. But it shows how teams can be all in. And I can completely admire that. I really want to see what the rest of these role players do. I can appreciate what Campaign was in Phoenix, and he's going to be more of the same here in Milwaukee. He's going to be a very solid addition as a backup point guard, someone to give them some spot minutes as the Bucks aren't exactly young. So he's going to have opportunity to start and play heavy minutes over the course of maybe like 15, 20 to 30 games over the year before the postseason comes in, which is going to be really important for them. Middleton's going to have a more reduced role, so we'll got to see what he's going to be doing with less ball carrying responsibilities, less handling during crunch time over the last couple of years. Middleton has been the closer for the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, if you're playing alongside Damian Lillard, more than likely Lillard's going to be the one bringing the ball up, initiating the offense, potentially even taking most of those shots, which would greatly reduce Middleton's role. So how is he going to be playing as more of a number 2 in crunch time and definitely a number 3 during the course of the regular season? I think it's going to be a better role for him, probably a bit more ideal and minimizing kind of his game, right? He kind of was tasked with doing too much, Julius Randle type stuff, if you will. You can pencil in Giannis and Dame to miss about 17 games each. It's about par for the course for them over the course of this stretch of their career. They've been missing prolonged stretches of the regular season. just because they're older. Giannis has been getting a couple of more nagging injuries that, you don't want to take too lightly. But this Bucks team, if I were to give them an offseason grade, it's kind of hard. I kind of want to give them an incomplete because what is this besides all in, right? That's the whole title of this, all in or play in for this entire division here. This is an all in maneuver. They're trying to appease Giannis, which of course you should. This is one of the best players, probably the best player in your franchise's history, unless you want to give it to Lou Alcindor. I would lean towards Giannis just because of the longevity here. But you want to keep him happy. You want to keep him here. You want to keep him rooted in Milwaukee for the entirety of his career. And this is one of the ways you do it. But if you fail and you don't win a championship this year, or let's say, Kurt, God forbid, for Milwaukee fans, you guys lose in the first round again, maybe a second round exit in an upset fashion, just like this year, that would be a disaster. It would be an utter disaster because this team is not getting any younger. You're looking at players like Chris Middleton, who's already been struggling with injuries the last 2 years, who's in his early 30s. Someone like Brook Lopez, how much longer is he going to be able to play at this level? He's in his late 30s. He's one of the oldest players in the NBA. And now Dame, who's also in his mid-30s, I think he can play pretty high. He just said he can play at this level until he's 38. I got to see that to believe it. But more or less, this is a kind of a really tight window for them to realistically fight for a championship. If it was just based on the talent that they accrued, obviously, you pick up one of the 10 to 12 best players in the league today, one of the 75 greatest players of all time who just came off of a career year despite being 32 years old, you go for it. And obviously, you're going to miss Drew Holiday and everything that he brought to the table, but you're picking up a player that pretty much unanimously would be considered a more valuable player over the course of a year, or just in general. So good job, Milwaukee. I got them top 2 seed in the East. Easy. Right up there. They've consistently had great regular seasons, and I'm excited to see what they do in this year as well. The next team we have up are the Chicago Bulls, one of the biggest question marks in the entire association. What the hell are they doing out there in Chicago? They are married to this core of Vucevic, Zach LaVine, and DeMar DeRozan. For some reason, they just cannot seem to get off of what this core means to them, which is really weird because it hasn't shown anything. Over the course of, I think 2 years ago, when Lonzo was still playing, the first half of that season, they were one of the best teams in the league. They were one of the most exciting teams in the league. But once Lonzo went down, just the wheels fell off. And the Chicago Bulls have not looked the same since. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of talent here. Kobe White had a great year last year. Patrick Williams kind of can't stay on the court, but he's solid. Ayo Dosunmu, really, really good player. Javon Carter, he was great in Milwaukee, a really good addition for them this year. Zach LaVine is an all-star consistently. DeMar DeRozan is playing at an elite level pretty consistently. Not the same level he played last year, where he was just going nuclear for 35-point nights every single night. But still really, really good basketball player. And Vucevic is a 2010 guy on a consistent basis. You would think that all of that talent combined would add up to, a contender. But it just hasn't. And they've been struggling to even make the play-in, going 40-42, and losing the play-in game to Miami Heat for the 8th seed. It hasn't gone well for them. And it's really unfortunate. This offseason, they lose Javonte Green, who was just a highlight machine. I can't even tell you how many insane dunks this man had over the course of the year. They lose Patrick Beverley, midseason addition, doesn't really hurt too much. They lose Derrick Jones Jr., a really good 3-and-D wing. And they add Javon Carter, which I love the addition. You add Torrey Craig, 3-and-D guy, Julian Phillips, and 3 undrafted rookies. Where's the real needle mover here? It's just really hard to see what the image is here besides growth and development from Kobe White, Patrick Williams, and Ayo Dosunmu, right? Because DeMar, LaVine, Vooch, and Caruso, that's a very talented 4, but can they go up against consistently some of the better teams in the East? How does that stack up against the 4 in Boston and Drew Holiday, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Kristaps Porzingis, right? How does that grade against Dame, Giannis, Chris Middleton, and Brook Lopez? Jimmy Butler and Bam, and any Tyler Hero, and whatever 4th player you want to throw in there. It doesn't add up to those other great teams. And this is a heavy investment, even when it comes to their draft compensation. They have a pick this year from Portland if they somehow make the playoffs. They have their own, but they don't have any picks in 2025. This is the last year of DeMar DeRozan's contract unless he gets an extension, which I haven't seen any talks of. But they just inked in Nikola Vucevic on an extension. They just gave him $60 million over 3 years. So I don't see it. It doesn't make sense to me. Lonzo's getting paid this year. He's more than likely going to pick up his player option as he hasn't shown progress in his own health. His injury is severe. It's bizarre. It's really bizarre why they're sticking to this core. And Zach LaVine's been in consistent trade rumors, but his trade value is as minimal as it can get because the contenders that could use a Zach LaVine don't know if they need a Zach LaVine, because what has he proven in terms of winning on any level besides, pushing towards early playoff exits, not even making the playoffs and fighting for play-in positioning? He hasn't shown he can be anything more than that. So would a contender be willing to part with 3 first-round picks for that? Alongside signing up $40 million, 43, and then 46 on 2025? It's tough. It's a really tough set of decisions they have to make, but it's starting to get to that point where they're going to have no choice. The Bulls offseason wasn't ideal. And do you see this team winning more than 45 games, fighting for a play-in spot? Potentially, right? They're not better than any of the top teams in the East. The Bucks, the Celtics, the Heat, the Cavs, the Knicks. That's already 5. I don't even know who you want to throw in. Like, they're going to be fighting with the Pacers, the Magic, the Nets, all these other teams. I didn't even mention the Sixers. Sixers are probably going to be in that 6th spot. So that's 7, 8, 9, and 10, which is the rest of their division. Add in the Orlando Magic, where I think is going to be very, very good this year. They're probably going to be in that range, which is not ideal considering you're investing this kind of money in a team that hasn't shown that they can win. And it's been a couple of years now. Expectations got to be there at some point. I don't see them winning more than 45 games this year. I see them probably hovering around what we saw this year, that 40 and 42 range, that 41 and 41, if that. It's not ideal. It's not looking good for Chicago right now, and they really got to embrace one identity or the other. I say it a lot, and it means the same thing as it does every single season. The worst place to be in the league is the middle. You either want to be really, really good or really, really bad. If you're in the middle, you're screwing yourself over. Very few teams know how to thread that needle, and the only way it works is if you have a generational talent, someone like a Nikola Jokic, right? You get someone like that where you can use those 14 picks, and the number 14 pick for Michael Carter Jr. Michael Carter Jr. Why am I spacing out on his name? Michael Porter Jr. I'm thinking Michael Carter Williams for some reason. You can use those back-end picks on someone like a Bobo, someone with high upside, And unless you have that, which they don't in Chicago, you're kind of screwing yourself over by fighting for nothing. But moving forward, being a little less depressing, but kind of still depressing, the Cavaliers. If you were to put an all-in team, would the Cavs count? If you were to list all the teams in the NBA and the association that are all in, right? Looking at Milwaukee, looking at the Phoenix Suns, the Lakers have kind of reverted back on that all-in. They were able to accrue more young talent and the ability to kind of thread the needle between having guys in the 24 to 27 range and LeBron James at 38 with Anthony Davis mid-prime. They were able to thread the needle. Very few teams can do that. I think the Cavs might be in that range. You look at what they have right now. Darius Garland is linked in for 5 years, straight through, no options till 2028. Donovan Mitchell is more than likely not going to re-sign. And he's only locked in until the end of next year. And he's more than likely going to decline his player option because he can make a lot more money on the market. Jared Allen is locked in for 3 years. Max Strus just signed a massive 4-year deal worth $62 million. Evan Mobley's probably going to get his big contract extension at the end of this year. He's on the his third year rookie deal. So he has one more rookie year. Isaac Okoro's on the last year of his rookie deal. Karis LeVert's locked in for 2 years. They kind of have a 2-year window here. Pretty much that's the window. Beyond that, they're going to have to figure it out with whether they want to keep Darius Garland, if Donovan Mitchell wants to stay there, Jared Allen, if he's going to be movable. And a lot of what their offseason was answering a problem that they didn't really have. If you watched the Cavs versus the Knicks series, What would you say the problem was? Their offseason was a little confusing because they assumed that it was perimeter play. But was that the problem? Like, they did shoot 32% from three, of course, across those 5 games against the Knicks, but they got out rebounded by 41 boards across 5 games, including giving up 75 offensive rebounds. They got bullied down low. Jared Allen and Evan Mobley are two phenomenally talented big men. Athletic as hell. They had a great season. Evan Mobley was in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation, but they got utterly manhandled by the big men in New York. Mitchell Robinson was cooking them down low. Isaiah Hartenstein grabbing boards. Josh Hart obviously is one of the better rebounding guards, but when he's grabbing more boards than your big men, there's a problem. And they didn't really answer that big man question besides getting Tristan Thompson, who potentially could teach these guys a thing or two down low. What else did they add? Amani Bates looks like a really promising young rookie. Very, very solid preseason, very solid summer league. They add shooting in Georges Niang for a stretch 5, and Max Strus, who was brilliant for the Miami Heat. A really, really good 3-point shooting marksman, great defensive hustle, solid rebounder, a good player, a really good overall 3-and-D player. It's just really weird that they wouldn't really answer the question of the big men situation. Something that I couldn't really wrap my head around. And when Allen said that the lights were brighter than expected after getting crushed, just utterly crushed in the postseason, it doesn't really point to a good culture brewing there. The Cavs are also in a weird spot because they don't exactly have a lot of tradable assets in terms of draft picks. They only have 2 picks left in 2024 and 2030. Both of them are untradeable, so they can only be swapped. And they have 8 second rounders. Donovan Mitchell, rumored obviously to be leaving at the end of next season, they have some questions ahead. And with most of that payroll expiring at the end of that Donovan Mitchell year, the longevity of this window doesn't seem to be there. And the competitiveness of this roster seems to be lacking compared to what else is happening out east. Like they just got trounced by the Knicks, and they haven't really gotten better to answer that. And while the Knicks didn't really make huge improvements either, they have a lot of internal growth that can happen. A lot of which is kind of, I don't know how to describe it besides like they don't need the offensive ability if they can just grab 75 offensive rebounds. You get the stop, but if you're giving them back the 2 points right under the basket, then what was the point? You know, it's just adding Strus and Niang gives you more firepower, but that's not what you needed. You needed better foundational pieces to stop things like offensive rebounds. You needed big men. And Tristan Thompson's not really going to answer that for you unless he's just there to be a tutor for Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. I still love the core of this team. Obviously, the core 4 of Mobley, Mitchell, Garland, and Allen is just too talented. Over the course of a 82-game season, that's no less than 50 wins with just those 4. And they still have a lot of other talent here. You know, Karis LeVert is a really good 2-guard. You throw in Max Strus, backup 2-guard. You throw in Georges Niang, gives you a second option as a stretch big. It's just the team is obviously talented, but they just didn't answer the question that needed to be answered. And it's something that I think we're going to have to see change over the course of the 82-game season. This should still be a top 4, top 5 team in the East, though. Solid. Very, very solid team. It's hard to see them doing more than a first-round exit. And obviously they can do it. They have the nuclear ability in people like Garland and Mitchell, but it's not the same as having like those floor-raising players. Moving on to a bright young team. So one of my hot takes of last year was, 2 of my hot takes of last year was 2 teams that are going to be way better than expected were the Detroit Pistons and the New York Knicks. Now, obviously the Knicks hit and the Pistons did not because they ended up being the worst team in the league at 17-65. It's a yikes. But at the same time, they also lost Cade Cunningham. A lot of that bet was hedged on the fact that Cade Cunningham was going to be the supreme talent that he showed himself to be at the end of his rookie season. So losing him like 10 games into the year really hurt those chances. However, we did see quite a bit from this roster in terms of the growth and development of players like Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren. Jalen Duren straight up dominated the big man role where they had kind of a fight for it. They actually had a bit of talent going back and forth. Who's going to be the starting center? James Wiseman comes in mid-year through a trade from the Golden State Warriors, and he played really well for them. Then they also bring in Marvin Bagley III, trying to revive his career, a hungry center that really kind of wants it. And Jalen Duren came out on top despite being a rookie. This is an intriguing team. You're getting Cade Cunningham back. Ivy and Duren proved to be a very dynamic duo. You have two bright young centers that kind of showed a bit over the course of the season in terms of talent and development. They've done a great job in James Wiseman and Marvin Bagley. So one of those guys is probably going to be traded. You can't have three centers that talented fighting for two spots. And you're not going to play both of them at the same time, or two of the three at the same time. So one of them is more than likely going to be traded. You draft Ausar Thompson. Now, I don't really know where these kids came from, the Thompson twins, but all reports show that they're just athletic freaks of nature, incredibly talented guard type abilities in a 6'8" frame, and some of the best defensive players that anyone's ever seen coming out of a rookie class, which is incredibly high praise for guys that didn't do either of the known routes to make it into the NBA. Neither of them went to the NCAA, and neither of them went to the G League, which is a newish route, and neither of them played overseas in Euro basketball. These guys came from a completely new league. I don't even know the name of it, and they were that dominant that people were like top 5 picks. They're top 5 picks, bar none. You add Joe Harris, you lose Hamidou Diallo, Corey Joseph, and Rodney Magruder. Just washes at that point. A lot of this is going to be predicated on their youth improvement. I think Cade Cunningham is a stud. He's going to be a perennial all-star over the course of his career. He just has too much talent for it not to matter. It's all there. He has all of the tools. Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren were a dynamic duo, and that's going to be your core 3. You have 3 brilliant young players and Ausar Thompson. Now you have 4. It's gonna be really cool to watch this team grow, and they've done it through the draft. Beyond that, you still have, Alec Burks and Bojan Bogdanovic shoring up the wing. This might be a surprise team out east. I picture them as kind of like a Houston light. A lot of young talent mixed with a couple of really solid vets with some solid trade potential too, between Bogdanovic being a 2-year deal, $20 million a season. Came off of a really good shooting year and hasn't really shown a sign of slowing down despite being 34 years old. You bring in a great coach and Monty Williams to helm the ship. There's a lot of promise in Motor City right now. Probably the most excitement that could have been around this team since they traded for Blake Griffin. They can probably, on the high end, pull off like a 40-win season. I do think that they're going to miss the play-in, but they're going to be fighting for play-in positioning. I believe that. This is a really, really solid team. They have all the draft capital in the world besides a first-round pick this year. They have a lot of future firsts. Their payroll is pretty clean. No one's getting paid more than $20 million. Joe Harris is out after this year. That's $20 million right off the books. James Wiseman, they got to figure out if they want to extend him. There's a lot of opportunity for this team. Monte Morris is on his way out last year of a deal. Alec Burks last year of a deal. I'm just saying there's a ton of mobility for this team to either trade for more assets, bring back draft picks, draft capital, maybe young players from contending teams. They just extended Beef Stew, Isaiah Stewart. They know what they're doing. I got to say, this is probably the most direction I've seen the Pistons have in a while. And it's been really impressive. Solid offseason. Not too crazy with the move department, but you don't need to. They got the cap space. They found a way to build it. All they need to do is develop those 4 young players. You develop those 4, you're in great shape. And the last team for this conference, the conference, right? It's the last division for the East. The Pacers. Indiana Pacers were 35-47 for the 11th seed last year. They made some decent moves. Nothing crazy, but decent. They lose George Hill, aging anyway. They lose O'Shea Brissett. They lose Chris Duarte and James Johnson. But they bring in Bruce Brown. I know he was a bit overpaid in terms of making $22 million this year. But, I mean, you have the money to spend. May as well spend it. They traded for Obi Toppin and they drafted Jarris Walker, who looked phenomenal in preseason, by the way. Obi Toppin, too. Obi Toppin is one of the most slept-on players in the league. He had great stints when he played and when he actually did play in New York. But he just couldn't find a way to crack the rotation because of who his coach is. Tom Thibodeau is famous for kind of thwarting young talent from playing heavy minutes. However, he did play when he had opportunities to with injuries or whatever, and he would go and just give you like 30 points and 8 rebounds. And now they have an opportunity to see what he can do on a team that actually is going to be starting him. Their offseason was a little bit more lateral than, I would have liked for a team that seems to be building in the right direction. They're in the middle of that rebuild, which they're kind of in that range that the Nuggets were in a couple of years back, where they have a transcendent young player, someone in Tyrese Halliburton, where they gave him a max. It was a no-brainer. One of the best young point guards in the league. Has so much more to offer than what we just saw. He just had a 20-10 season on damn near 50, 40, 90 shooting. And like that, you just don't get that. That doesn't exist in a lot of places around the league, and they have it. They have it. He's a brilliant young player. They pick up Obi Toppin on a fire sale because the Knicks really didn't have any haggling opportunity. And now you had Benedict Mathurin, who had a brilliant rookie season, and Jarris Walker, who seems to be a solid, intriguing prospect. The Pacers still have a weird decision to make around Miles Turner and Buddy Hield. They've been on the trade market for like 100 years, and nobody seems to be biting on it. However, Miles Turner is inked in for 2 more years, and Buddy Hield's on an expiring. Somebody's going to trade for him. Maybe Miami's going to be in the market for those 2 players. They have draft capital to trade for Buddy Hield. Hey, take Buddy Hield. We'll take, give me Duncan and give me a first-round pick. Then you have Miles Turner. I saw posted in Bleacher Report, trade ideas. Really good one. I liked it. Miles Turner to the Knicks. Give me Mitchell Robinson and that Dallas Mavericks protected first-round pick. Now I get off that money. I take on a young athletic center that kind of fits more my timeline at 24 years old. And you get this dude who's more of a win-now player, just came off of a career year. Dude was averaging like 17-8 with like 2.5 blocks, shooting 38% from 3. Like, they were their second and third leading scorers and their second and third leaders in blocks, box plus minus, but they're going to be enticing to anybody at the trade deadline to bolster for a title run. They have a lot of value. Benedict Mathurin, I just mentioned a little while ago, he was explosive in his rookie season, and usually they have a big second-year jump, some of those more talented rookies. They're in a weird spot, like I said, that kind of put themselves in the middle ground, where they don't really have a lot of upward trajectory without making either a big move or huge development from their young players. But they're also not bad enough to lose. Tyrese Halliburton is one of those floor-raising talents where you're going to win like 20 games just with him. And now you have some decent talent here, especially with Miles Turner and Buddy Hield, 2 really good veterans playing alongside him. That's going to push you to 35 wins alone. And, like they just need to find out what identity they're going to embrace. Are you going to be playing to win, or are you going to be playing to get another draft pick? Are you going to be trying to accrue assets to make a trade for a superstar down the line? Like, those are the things that are going to be the decisions made in Indiana. Hopefully they move on from Hield and Turner. I would love to see them play more, winning basketball over the course of the season. However, keeping them wouldn't hurt either. If you want to use them to help, guide this young core into the right direction, there's no way it's going to do any damage. As even like Halliburton, he's still on a rookie deal this year. His $35 million won't kick until next year. So you have nothing but cap space to waste this year. I don't know what the Pacers are going to do. I think they're going to hover on the same space. They got to figure out a way to keep Tyrese Halliburton healthy over the course of the season, which I think that they can do. It's just a matter of kind of splitting his minutes a little bit with, who's their backup point guard again? TJ McConnell, who I also love as a veteran. So this is a team rife with like really good, weird talent that can help anybody win now, especially those top tier contenders. I'm just saying they have a lot of opportunity to pick up young players or draft capital if they ever decide to make some trades. But they're kind of on a timeline now. They have Halliburton officially inked in, and he signed up until 2028 with guaranteed money. So they have some decisions to make. However, they're not in an unenviable position. The position that they're in is very much a good one to be in. Having that much talent and of the variety of ages that they have while maintaining your draft compensation is a really good place to be. So Indiana, congratulations. I think you're probably going to be around 500. I think you're actually going to make the play-in this year, pushing for that 9-10 spot. And you probably could sneak one of those 2 playoff spots. Realistically, this is a solid team. Very, very solid team. Obviously hedged with Halliburton being healthy. And, if Obi Toppin becomes what we saw flashes of in New York, you guys got yourself a steal. But that's it for me today. I appreciate you tuning in and stopping by. If you want to leave anything in the comments, let me know. If you like the content, please subscribe, like the video, etc., etc. Much appreciated. I'm going to go watch the Chargers play the Cowboys now. Have a good night, and I'll catch you next time.